Hello everybody and welcome to another video where I take a look at what is popular in Japan in terms of light novels. This time I'm going to be taking a look at the top 10 best-selling light novels from February 25th to March 3rd of 2019. I'm almost caught up. I'm probably about 2 lists behind, but hey, at least we're into March as we end March. In any case, for the list this week, we've got a brand new number 1 title. Just because some people have been asking, this list is compiled from the Oricon website. It is a Japanese ranking website. They do have at least 3 different lists. One is a light novel list, but on these other 2 lists, I think it's like the literature and bunko list or something like that. In any case, sometimes light novels can appear on there, but they don't appear on the light novel list. It's just kind of how the publishers list them, and I don't know, there's probably just a whole bunch of politics, but basically I take a look at those 3 lists and compile this from that. So that's where this is coming from. I used to take this list from My Anime List, and as far as I know, that they got all of their stuff from Oricon as well. They got more info from me than because they had a paid membership, which I don't. But nonetheless, it's pretty much all coming from that same website. So if you're interested, that's where it's coming from. So with all of that said, let's just get to the list. At number 10, with 4,406 copies sold, volume number 8 of Himajin Maou no Sugata de Isekai he Tokidoki cheat na burari Tabi, or Bored, Sacred, and Now a Devil. I'm taking this from Novel Updates. That seems like a really short English title compared to the Japanese title, but anyway. A gaming hobbyist in between jobs spent his free time playing his favorite online game. After enjoying the last day of service with his friends, he awoke in an area that hadn't existed in the game. Then he met a lone woman. It turns out his appearance had been overtaken by that of his character. In this world, he uses his newfound power to enjoy complete freedom. So, like, really, is there anything much to say about this? It sounds like the setup of only about 8,000 other light novels. In fact, even like the whole "it's the last day of service" sounds like Overlord. The fact that he is in his in-game appearance sounds like How Not to Summon a Demon Lord, again, Overlord. A whole bunch of other ones. I have no idea what sets this apart from all of those other titles. Although I think it's kind of weird though. Bored, Sacred, and a Devil? Like, again, I don't think that's really accurate given the Japanese, but you know, if you want to chime in, if you've got some knowledge in that field or you have some knowledge of this title, I'd love to hear about it in the comments down below. At number 9, with 4,770 copies sold, this one was on the last list, volume number 2 of Madan no to Michelia, or Lord Marksman and Michelia. No license for this or the parent series of Lord Marksman and Vanadis. Now, as somebody pointed out to me, Vanadis apparently is a title. I'm not sure, what's Michelia then, or Michelia or whatever it is then, because that's not really her name, because given with the description of this, it sounds like her actual name is Mila. So is Michelia or Michelia, is that a title as well? Feel free to let me know. Basically, what it sounds like is, so there was this series, Lord Marksman and Vanadis. It's basically a fantasy type world with nations at war. The main character, he is taken captive, if I recall, or offers himself up as a hostage. It's been a long time since I saw the anime, and like I said, there's no license for the light novels. And anyway, it's about his relationship with the girl who takes him captive, who is a Vanadis, and I cannot remember her name off the top of my head, and I'm sure somebody told me yesterday about it, but anyway, this one is somehow sort of telling the same story, but it's like an alt reality where instead of ending up as a hostage, he actually ends up teaming up with a friend of his who is a Vanadis from another nation. At least that's what it sounds like. Again, I got a little bit of background on the series in general from some of you, but not a whole lot of info on just why the author's even bothering, unless, you know, the author just really had nothing else to write about. I don't know. Who knows? And like I said, we've got no license for either of them, so we might never know exactly. At number 8, with 5,170 copies sold. This one was on the previous list. Actually, it was number 1, so it's had quite a bit of a fall. It's volume number 11 of Youjo Senki, or as we have it in English, The Saga of Tanya the Evil. This one licensed for English release by Yen On. A story about a salaryman from Japan who, well, he's not the greatest guy, really, and he dies. And, well, we won't get into how he dies. It tells you quite a bit about who he is. In any case, he dies, and meets God, as, you know, isekais are. Except this time, instead of God being sorry for him or offering him some kind of wonderful life with cheat abilities or what have you, God goes on a crazy rant about how, you know, people have lost the faith and everything else, and this guy's kind of like, well, what do you expect? I mean, we live in a world that's full of peace, and it's not like we see miracles every day, like magic and that kind of stuff. Like, it's really easy to not believe in the supernatural. And God's like, you know, you're right. Why don't I change that for you? And so Salaryman finds himself reborn in the body of a young blonde girl named Tanya de Gruchev, who is gifted with magical powers and ends up becoming embroiled in a massive retelling, basically, of Worlds 1 and 2 of our world, but in an alt reality with magic and all the rest of it. So it's cool series. I've read the first volume of it. The series is obviously kind of a different take on the whole isekai thing, because there's actually an antagonist relationship between the main character and God, which often doesn't really happen, and it's sort of this salaryman. It almost reads kind of anti-hero-ish. I mean, it's just that he's very self-centered, and his drive is just to become as successful and to survive as he can, and so it's just kind of a very different feel. And like I said, the books are very well researched and just filled with all sorts of military logistics, policies, strategies, and stuff like that. There's like footnotes even in the book that give you background on, usually it's fictional historical background on these different countries. And yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly well constructed series. I know it's not going to be for everybody, but a pretty cool series. And there was an anime, of course, which focused heavily on the action elements. There's a movie coming out, which I believe is a continuation of the series, and it really wouldn't surprise me if we find out about a season 2 after that movie. At number 7, with 5,274 copies sold, this one again on the list previously and was number 2, so again we've had a big shift in the top titles. That's volume number 10 of Ryuo no Oshigoto, or as we have it in English, The Ryuu's Work is Never Done. This series being released in English officially by Bookwalker. It is an exclusive title for them, so you can only buy it from their website in digital format. This one about a 16-year-old boy who has risen to the top ranks of the shogi world, has obtained the title of Ryuo, and he is kind of being crushed under the weight of that responsibility, that sense of, you know, feeling that he needs to maintain tradition and everything else. And he comes home and finds this 9-year-old girl who basically is like, you promised to take me as your apprentice. He, of course, has no memory of it at all. But in any case, it's really about their relationship and about how she's almost like this kind of protege who just has a very passionate and at times unorthodox gift for shogi, and it kind of reignites his passion for the whole thing. The shogi battles are actually really well written. You know, it's kind of interesting to see almost like shonen type logistics in terms of battles, but being applied to the movement of pieces on a board. I thought it was actually very well written in that regard, and a lot of people have agreed. In fact, like I said in previous videos, the Shogi Association of Japan has endorsed it. It has been number 1 in the Kono Light Novel Gasugoi on the Bunko list for a couple of years in the past. It was on the list this year, although it wasn't number 1. So, very well regarded. Like I said, I was a little turned off by the lolly antics in the first volume, but again, apparently those do get better as you go along. It's becoming less of a focus. So yeah, you know, again, one of those series that I think you kind of have to commit to reading a bit more of it to really get a good feel for what the books are really like and what the series is really like, which I unfortunately didn't do. At number 6, with 5,628 copies sold, volume number 11 of Izakaya Bottakuri, or Izakaya Rolling. We do not have an English license for this series. There's really not a lot of information to be found. However, I did have some user, when it did place in the top 10, they said that basically it's a bunch of short stories focusing on two sisters who have taken over a bar after their parents pass away. And that it's kind of like a whole fluffy slice of life mixed with the food, and kind of focusing on the lives and problems of the customers who come in and kind of talk about it, and taking a look at sort of the business challenges and so forth. So very much a slice of life focusing on a bar. It kind of reminds me of a Japanese Cheers, actually, now that I think about it. And maybe I'm just dating myself. I don't know how many of you guys watching this video would know what Cheers is. Actually, based on my analytics, probably a lot of you do. So yeah, it sounds sort of like a Japanese version of Cheers. At least that's kind of how I take it. And again, no English license for this one. Although I wonder if that'll change now that food is becoming a bigger thing. I know we still basically just have it mixed with Isekai, but maybe we'll see more of a foodie type light novels in the next couple of years. At number 5, with 6,051 copies sold, volume 21 of Tate no Yuusha no Nariagari, or as we have it in English, The Rising of the Shield Hero. This one licensed and released in English by One Piece Books. Of course, the first core of the anime just finished airing. There is going to be a second core, I guess, starting very shortly, I guess when the next season begins. This one about Naofumi Iwatani, an uncharismatic otaku who spends his days on games and manga, who suddenly finds himself summoned to a parallel universe. He discovers he is one of 4 heroes equipped with legendary weapons and tasked with saving the world from its prophesized destruction. As the shield hero, the weakest of the heroes, all is not as it seems. Naofumi is soon alone, penniless and betrayed. With no one to turn to and nowhere to run, he is left with only his shield. Now, Naofumi must rise to become the legendary shield hero and save the world. So this one, it's had its share of controversies. We actually just did a light novel podcast about Shield Hero. Maybe I'll put a link or something up in the corner. And we talked at length about it. I did take some criticism because I said, I kind of understood why there were people who felt the way they did. However, you know what? At the same time, I did defend the series, and I'll continue to defend the series. I think a lot of the decisions that people didn't like in the series were made much more because of a writing and plot perspective than a agenda type perspective, which seems to be what a lot of people are trying to push onto this, that it has some kind of hidden agenda, which I really just don't buy into, especially when you read more volumes in the series. I've read the first 7 books of it. I liked it enough that I would like to read at least a couple more to at least finish the arc that I was into. And again, if you want to hear all sorts of heavier thoughts on it, you can check out the podcast, although there are a ton of spoilers in there, so just be forewarned. It seems overall, though, outside of the couple of very vocal outliers, it seems overall the anime has been fairly well received. I know even my wife and son have been enjoying it, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see sort of how much more they adapt in the next season that they bring out. At number 4, with 8,268 copies sold, volume number 7 of Kawaii Keiraba Hentai Demosuki ni Nate Kuremasaka, or Would You Love Perverts If They're Cute? I love the title of this one. There is no English license for the light novels or the manga, and they have just actually announced that there's going to be an anime of this. It ought to be interesting. The romantic comedy begins when a love letter arrives out of the blue for Keiki Kiryu, an ordinary high school student who has never had a girlfriend as long as he has been alive. The letter does not include the sender's name, but the letter does include white panties. In the process of investigating who could be his Cinderella who left behind her panties, Keiki discovers every candidate is uniquely perverted and desperately interested in having him participate in their perversion. The description of this sounds super ecchi, but we were talking about this in the Light Novel podcast very recently, actually. I think actually on the Shield Hero, because we were talking about the news about the anime being announced. And we were saying that, like, perversion doesn't necessarily always mean, like, sexual perversion, particularly when you're talking about, in Japan, like, when we often translate the word into pervert, it doesn't necessarily mean, like I said, it doesn't always mean sexual, although I find it kind of funny. I kind of wonder what this series is really like, because if you look at the covers, like, the covers are all of cute girls undressing, like halfway undressed, whatever. Like, I mean, it definitely is trying to play up that whole ecchi type angle. So I don't really know how far the series gets into that territory. It'll be interesting to see what the anime, how that gets received and how well it does. And I don't know. I don't know whether this is like a light novel series that we would get in English. I mean, if the anime does really well, I guess, like, it's not impossible, but, yeah, 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 okay, well, we'll see what happens. If you're familiar with the series at all, I'd love to hear some thoughts in the comments down below. Like I said, is it like a bait and switch where it's like, it makes you think that it's all, you know, naughty, 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 but really the perversions that the girls have are just kind of more like that they're twisted or whatever. Just kind of, that part I'd like to know. You don't have to spoil anything, but you get what I'm after. At number 3, with 8,327 copies sold, this one hanging on the list for quite a while and moving up the list because, well, I'm thinking this is probably about the point where the movie really started becoming popular, and that's the movie adaptation Shosetsu Eiga Doraemon Nobita no Getsuman Tanseki, or Doraemon the Movie 2019, Nobita's Chronicle of the Moon Exploration. I've talked about this on the last couple of videos because, well, it's Doraemon and it just seems to be super popular. And I know that the movie in its release, the first couple of weeks of release in Japanese box offices was #1, so not too surprising that the light novel's doing very well. Again, my knowledge on Doraemon, horribly sketchy, pretty much non-existent, let's be honest with each other. This one apparently is about a character who sees the moon turn yellow and his classmates give him a hard time about it. So Doraemon helps him out and they discover that there's actually people living on the moon and there's some new classmate that changes everything and I don't know. You know what, if you know more about Doraemon, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. At number 2, with 16,667 copies sold, Volume number 2 of Zoku Kono Subarashi Sakai ni Bakuen wo, or Continued Gifting This Wonderful World with Explosions, Volume number 2. So yes, this is a Konosuba spin-off. In fact, it's the third spin-off of the Konosuba series. We do have the main series licensed for English release from Yen on, and I know that we have the Gifting This World with Wonderful Explosions, the first spin-off, which is actually a prequel series, has been licensed by Yen on as well. We haven't had that released yet, but that one focuses on Megumin before the whole Konosuba storyline. Konosuba, of course, is an isekai series where the main character, he is given the option to take something with him into the next world, and he chooses the goddess herself that is giving him that option. It's a very, very funny series. You know, it has a very stereotypical setup of defeat the demon lord, but that's such a minor part of the series. It's a really hysterical series. For this one is actually, it's focusing on the activities of Megumin, Yunyun, and Alice during the time frame between volumes 8 and 9 of the main series. Again, this one is, you know, later on in the series as opposed to the previous explosions, which is before. Apparently Megumin, who is inspired by a mysterious masked thief, forms a chivalrous thieving group for the sake of the people. According to the notes that I have here, they state that you should read volumes 1 to 9 of the main series and both of the spin-offs before starting this one. So I'm guessing it probably has spoilers because, well, I mean, it's more recent, right? So in any case, that spin-off, definitely, Konosuba just continues to be super popular, regardless of whether it's a spin-off or the main series. And as I said, so far no license for the other 2 spin-offs, just the very first one, which is the Megumin prequel spin-off. At number 1, with 22,041 copies sold, volume number 8 of Kusuriya no Hitorigoto, which is roughly the pharmacist's monologue. We do not have an English license for these light novels. There is a certain large country in the central plains of the mainland. In the imperial court of its emperor, there is a girl. Her name is Maou, a pharmacist from the prostitution quarter, currently working as a maidservant in the inner palace. The girl, surely not considered a beauty, is keeping a low profile, waiting for her contract to end. She is confident that she will not be made a mistress of the emperor. During that, she learns about the short lives of the children of the emperor. Maou, hearing that the 2 surviving children are critically ill, begins to investigate the cause. Set in the Middle Ages of the East, the food taster girl continues to solve difficult cases in the imperial court, one after another. So this one is, I think it sounds really cool. So it's a period piece, first of all, and it's kind of like that whole, like, she's a pharmacist, and she solves mysteries that are plaguing, I guess, the imperial city. This sounds, like I said, you know what? I get kind of excited when there's light novels that are just very, very different from the vast majority of light novels that we have in English, or even really different from a lot of the light novels that we get in the top 10. I mean, how many times do I talk about isekais in the top 10? And I mean, I know, like, some people love them, some people are tired of them. Clearly, they still make ridiculous amounts of money, so that's why they keep coming out. But I love seeing something like this in the top 10, something that's just completely different and like solid number 1, you know, like it even sold like almost like, you know, 5,500 copies more than a Konosuba spinoff, which, you know, like I said, Konosuba, a really popular series. So yeah, I really like seeing these very different kind of light novels succeeding really, really well. And like I said, I'd love to see something like this licensed, just to give us some more like different stuff. And I kind of like the whole mystery element to it and the period piece element. Yeah, it sounds really cool. Are any of you familiar with this one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. In this video, I want to say a special thanks to Michelia Warner, Megas, Cine, Philip Vosberg, and Naru for their support, as well as the support of all of my patrons over on Patreon who help keep this channel running and help keep the Light Novel Podcast hosted for the most amount of coverage to different platforms possible. And just, you know, just that moral support that there's people who believe me enough to kick in a couple of bucks every month. It's fantastic, and I really do appreciate it. So those are the top 10 light novels in Japan for February 25th to March 3rd of 2019. Like I said, I'm slowly clawing my way up to being caught up. There's only one more that I've got ready to go, and then there's just the newest list. So I'm finally kind of caught up. Hopefully in the next week and a half, I'll be right back on top of these lists and getting them out to you. As I said, not getting it from my anime list now, it just means that there's a couple of extra steps that I have to go through that makes it a little more work. But But I like doing these videos, and I like finding out about new titles that I otherwise wouldn't hear about. So, and obviously, judging by all of you guys who check these videos out, you kind of feel the same. So, thank you so much for joining me in this video and hanging in there with this series and hanging in there while I'm kind of falling behind for a bit. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, bye-bye for now.